Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with LJR Consulting Services. Lynda Roth, that's Lynda Roth. She's the owner and executive consultant at LJR Consulting Services. And it's ljrcs.com is the website. There's so much more to her as a person, all the work she's done and put into her company and how she's helping other companies really become more profitable. She's also an author. I'll have her introduce herself. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks very much, Jill.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Great. Please introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Yes. So my name is Lynda Roth. I have been an executive consultant for probably 30 years. I've had a long career, starting out in information technology and moving into working with mid-market businesses primarily on how they can use information technology better to become more profitable.
Beautiful. And I know we had some great conversations in the past about your company, the
Mhm.
work you do. You're based out of Missouri, right?
Correct.
Wildwood,
I'm in St.
but
Louis. Yes.
but you're worldwide. So again, guys, listen up. CFOs, COOs, CEOs looking to learn about new technologies and services that could really help increase productivity. She's the woman to talk to. Lynda, yeah, why don't you explain that to them? What is, the purpose of hiring you and your consulting firm?
Well, the purpose of hiring me is twofold. First of all, a lot of mid-market businesses aren't sure about what systems they need, how to get started, where to go to look for them. The majority of my clients that are in the mid-market say, I know we need whatever, let's say an ERP system, but other things too. And they'll say, but we can't afford it because all they're looking at is the big expensive vendors that all the big companies use. And so my response is usually, oh no, there are many, many that service the mid-market and I'll help you find them. And so that's what we do. And a client I've been working with for the last few months, that was the exact conversation that we had because they were concerned and I brought them some very good opportunities for ERP systems and, worked them through the presentations and the negotiation and we settled on one and now we're implementing it and I'm guiding them through that.
Oh, wonderful. And what did you have in mind for us today? What did you want to share with us about your work and, obviously what you could do for us?
Well, what I'd like to talk about today is being what I call an interconnected business. Most of the time people think about information technology that's within their four walls, right? My ERP system, my CRM system, how my organization works, Salesforce, whatever, all these things to get your organization working, which of course you need to do. That needs to be done first. But today we have to be interconnected businesses. So as an example, a year or so ago, I had a company that contacted me. They had been referred to me and they were a small business that made the small plastic dishes for frozen food dinners.
Mm-hmm.
And they were complaining. Their problem was that they get rush orders from their customers for the little dishes, and that creates a lot of problems for them in terms of their scheduling and everything. And I said, well, the reason you're getting rush orders is your inventory or the products that you produce for them are not considered high on the list. And so they've got a schedule that they are running. And then all of a sudden they go out and they check and they say, oh, well, we need the dishes for this particular dinner. And so they send you a rush order.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, one of the ways that you can resolve that is if you connect your systems to theirs so that you can see what they've got planned in terms of their food runs. And then you can be prepared and have the dishes that are required for that. They thought I was a little bit crazy, but that's what I mean by being interconnected companies. Today, we have a very large supply chain, long supply chain, I should say.
Yeah.
And everybody has a piece in it. And so to keep that supply chain moving, it helps if the companies are connected rather than waiting for a purchase order to come and then you fulfill the purchase order or whatever. It helps to be what I call an interconnected business. And there's no reason why you can't be that today.
Oh, wonderful. And how do we get in touch with you if we want to reach out?
The best way to get in touch with me is either my email, which is Lynda, Lynda, at ljrcs.com, or my phone 818-216-7264.
Perfect. Awesome. And you've been in the business for quite some time, and I know you always give us great examples of the work you're doing. Do you want to share any of them?
Sure. Well, I'm working with a company right now that they're a mid-market firm, and they had been on older technologies, and it was a very similar thing to what I get all the time. Is we know we need something new, but we can't afford the big systems because they're very expensive, and so I end up saying no. There's many in the middle, and so last year we spent some time, and I brought in all the vendors for them to evaluate. We selected one, and so now I'm overseeing the implementation, working with the vendor partner and with their team and a couple of other vendors that are also included in it. And I just keep everybody organized and moving forward.
Yeah. Well, that's your job. You're good at
That's right.
it.
Well, because so many companies get stuck on these implementations
Hmm.
and they go on forever, right? And so you need somebody like me to prod both sides on what needs to happen so
Yeah.
that they don't get stuck in them forever.
And how many times are people getting stuck? How often do you see that?
Almost all the time. Almost all the time.
Yeah.
And it's twofold, because the vendor's sitting there saying, well, I need these things, and the client doesn't know how to go about doing it. And there's a lot of communication breakdowns. And so what I do is, because I know what both sides have to do, then I get in and keep them moving and talking with each other on what the next steps are and what has to happen.
Yep. And time again, what are some of the things you see? You know,
Well, the things I see are, first of all, the business doesn't really have a grasp on how, what a big effort putting in new systems are, and how much time it's going to take, and how much thought they have to put into it in terms on how their company is going to function. That it's not just a technology project, it's an all-consuming business project. So I bring the operating people together with it, because they have to start thinking about their processes and everything. So there's a lot of thought that has to go into setting up these systems. It's not just that you have the vendor come in and install it and then it's all done. No, there's a lot of work to do that. And then on the flip side, with the vendor, they don't always take the time to learn the company well enough and what their issues are. And also sometimes bringing in the right people. The one I'm working on right now, the vendor's pretty good. I don't have to push a whole lot, but there's a whole lot of them that I need to spend a lot of time with the vendors on exactly what people they need to bring in, where we're at and everything, and training that has to go on, etc.
got it. And
So
okay.
I was going to say, it's kind of like building a house or a business or whatever, right? You have a whole bunch of different trades that have to be involved in it, things that have to be done. And you've got to have an overall person that knows how to go from concept to the detailed plans and to the different contractors you have to have. And so it's the same thing with doing these big system implementations.
Oh my goodness. Wow. This is overwhelming to me, but not someone like yourself, because you're used to this, right?
Yes, I am used to it.
Yeah. So again, consulting services, part-time CIO services you offer, the website ljrcs.com. If someone does want to reach out, you offer initial free consultation.
Yes.
Awesome. And, you've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, I know your background because I've spoken to you, but for those new time listeners today, just tell us a little bit about your background in the business. I know it's pretty extensive, so just give us a quick
Yes.
little summary.
Well, I've been in quote in information technology since before people knew what it was, including me. But we won't go all the way that far back, because I did spend time, being a developer, and I started a software company and built it, and then technology changed, and my partners didn't see the need to change from the mainframe technology to the new technologies that were client server technologies that were coming in, and so I left and they failed, which I knew was going to happen. And so since then, I've been doing consulting work to get companies to understand how they keep up with the trends in technology, and keep the systems moving forward that they need to have. and helping them select, because the other thing is they get so confused. And I think I had said this, a lot of the mid-market companies, when I go into them, they say, well, we know we need something, but we can't afford the big expensive systems. And I say, well, there's many in the middle, and we'll help you find one. So that's kind of what I do. And then managing, because when you get these projects started, then you've got a team from the business, you've got a team from the vendor, you've probably got some other vendors or professionals that need to be involved. And it takes a lot to keep everybody organized. And so that's what I tend to do, is I'm like the overall making sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do.
And how's your stress level? Or are you just good at this?
It's actually not too bad because I'm accustomed to this.
Interesting. Yeah, some of us are bred differently. I'm overwhelmed with just raising my two kids and working full time now to oversee all these businesses and help. That's like a lot on your plate, but you clearly have the experience in the background. And did you say your father worked in the business too? Was that?
Well, my father owned a business. It was an HVAC business, but
Yeah.
I became accustomed to the stress isn't the right word, but just to the pace, because my father owned an HVAC business. And in the summer in St. Louis, Missouri, HVAC is very popular, right? And he was busy all the time. The phone rang off the hook constantly, and needing to keep him organized. And these were in days before the technology was out and everything. And so I would work in his office in the summertime. So I got a really good dose of how to organize and keep up with this barrage of customers calling. So when I would go to work, and especially some of the early businesses I worked in, and people would ask me, I said, I worked for my dad in an HVAC company in the middle of the summer. No problem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Oh my goodness. Well, this is pretty fascinating, the work you do. We got to remind everyone how we can reach out to you.
Sure, you can reach me through my email, Lynda, Lynda, at ljrcs.com, or my cell phone, 818-216-7264. I do
Perfect.
have a website, ljrcs.com. I'm in the process of getting that upgraded, which it desperately needs.
Yeah,
I'm,
that's okay.
I'm sort of like the old story of the cobbler's children's shoes, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me,
um,
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Your book, what is the name of the book
That's
again?
right, my book. Yes, my book has been out since 2020. It's called Digital Transformation: An Executive Guide to Survive and Thrive in the New Economy. And it's still very pertinent, even though it was written and published in 2020, because a lot of companies still need to do the basics. But it goes all the way through what is the reason, what's causing the transforming to be more digital organizations, and what you have to do. And I
Yeah.
go through step-by-step process in it. So it's still a very valuable book. As a matter of fact, I have a friend of mine that he just asked me for 3 or 4 more copies that he's dropping off at a couple companies that I shouldn't say that he works with, but that he knows that they
Okay.
need help. Yeah.
And what else did you want everyone to know today? I mean, we've been talking for quite a few months and learning about your business and the work you're doing to help people. And during these few months, I'm sure there's so many companies that have benefited from your work. Is there any good stories that you want to share?
Well, a lot of the stories tend to be very similar. I work primarily with mid-market businesses, a lot of them manufacturing and distribution, because there's a whole lot of those. But any mid-market business, I mean, I can work with the big ones too, but the big consulting firms don't like people like me, so I tend to stay in the mid-market. Um, and the value I bring is, especially for executives in the mid-market, they don't know where to go to look for the systems that they need.
Yeah.
And like I think I was saying before, a common statement I get is, I know we need new systems, but I can't afford the big ones. And they don't know where else to go. And so I bring in those vendors for them. I work with the vendors. I help them evaluate the systems that we're going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
and then make the decision. And then often I also guide them through the implementation
Yeah.
so that they can be successful. Because the other thing that they're afraid of is even if they get what looks like the right system, there's so many failures out there that that's what they're afraid of.
Yeah.
And so I work with them to be successful at it.
Oh.
And it takes a lot of work to get everybody organized.
Now, what happened with you guys during the pandemic?
Well, actually, I had a client that I was working with during the pandemic, and I was already working remotely with them. They were a client in Southern California where I had lived, and I had taken them on while I was in transition, moving to St. Louis. And
Mm-hmm.
so then they still had me work with them. And before the pandemic, because I started working with them in 2017. And so before the pandemic, I would work remotely and I would go to California once a month for a week to spend with them. But then when the pandemic came on, we were already working remotely. So I just didn't go to California for the week that I was going before and worked all the way through 2020 with them. And then I started finding some St. Louis clients. And what's interesting is even though they're in St. Louis, a 20-minute drive away, still most of the time I work remotely with them.
Interesting, right? Wow.
Right. I mean, they're used to that now. And, everybody else on the project team is remotely a lot. And the company has multiple locations. So one location over in Poland. So we end up with, you know, team members from Poland and team members from different states in the United
Wow.
States from the vendor and us here in St. Louis. So, work like this has become pretty much remote regardless.
Oh my goodness. And then the time change and the time difference. So you're on meetings at different times, day and night, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
But it's a lot of fun and there's a lot more opportunity and ways to collaborate now that we can all work together regardless of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with the technology we're on right now with Zoom. I mean, before the pandemic, I was working with a client in California and I was here in St. Louis. And so we'd be on quote webinars, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Zoom wasn't popular then. So we'd have a few webinars. And then, like I said, the agreement I had with them was I would go out to California once for a week every month and spend time with them. And it was a bit of a challenge to get them talked into it that I could work with them from Missouri. And I said, well, look, you've got the vendor, which is not going to be on your premises. They're in various locations. They had team members in Arizona, team members on the West Coast, et cetera. And I said, and you have locations in Arizona and in California. So everybody's going to be all over the place. You're not all going to be in one place. So it doesn't matter that I'm in Missouri.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Does it?
So they got used to it. And then, I think I started working with them in 2017 or something like that. And in 2020, we were still working. And then, of course, I didn't even have to go out there once a month for a week.
Wow. Wow. The way the world has changed.
That's right. The way the world has changed, but it makes things easier. I can help companies no matter where they're at. And I like that opportunity. It just so happens right now I have a client 20 minutes away in St. Louis, but we still work mostly remotely because they've got locations in Europe and in other places in the United States. And so we always have people from various places.
Interesting. And the work you're doing clearly, if someone's just tuning in now to tell them the type of companies you could help increase profitability for would be, how do you describe them? Mid-level,
They're,
what's the
they're
word?
they tend to be mid-market, what I call
Mid-market,
mid-market
market, thank you.
companies. A lot of them are privately held.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes it's still the original owner, like a client I'm working with right now. Other times it's the original owner still owns the company, but is not involved in the day-to-day. And so he has executive management, but the owner's not involved in it, but it's still a privately held business. So I work with a lot of those, but public companies are fine too. But
Mm-hmm.
I tend to work more with the mid-market. It tends to be more privately held or held by private equity firms that I work with.
Got it.
And they're often they are manufacturing or distribution companies. They don't have to be, but it seems to be the sweet spot and where a lot of the businesses are.
Yeah. And let's remind everyone how we reach out to you. It's LJR Consulting. What is it? LJRCS?
LJRCS.com.
Got it. Perfect. Linda, we still have 5 minutes left in our show today. And speaking here in regards to the work that you're doing and how you could help our businesses, is there any other stories you wanted to share with us?
Well, I think the big stories and the big message is for owners of mid-market businesses, one, they don't have to be afraid of implementing new technology, number one. And what they're afraid of most of the time is the systems cost a lot because they go and talk to their friends or they're in these groups and they hear about the multi-millions of dollars that are being spent and they're like, I just can't afford this. And so it's the cost of the bigger systems and the cost of the bigger consulting firms that are hired to do it. And so it ends up in multi-millions of dollars. And so what I bring to those mid-market companies is, first of all, I know a lot of products that are available in the mid-market that are they're still going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're not going to cost millions.
Yeah.
And I know the companies that support those, which tend to be smaller private businesses that support them and get the systems implemented. And so I bring those to the table. So now they see an affordable solution that meets their needs.
Yeah. Well, I personally, not being in the business world and not knowing anything about this, you've taught me a lot. And Lynda Roth here obviously can help improve. And every company, I would assume, wants to increase profits and wants to improve their visibility. And it's awesome that you can help so many people. Clearly, you've been established for so long that you're able to do this, and people are coming in. How long do you work with them for, though? After the process, do you consult still on a base after you set them up right where they have to be and everything's done? Do you still work with them on a daily
It
basis, check in?
usually after the system is installed, it's just a check-in, but you've got time. First of all, it starts with evaluating. As I'll take the current client, they're a perfect example. First, it was we've got to get off of this old system we're on, but we don't even know how to begin to find something. And the big systems cost too much money, right? Because they go to all their friends. And so their friends may have bigger companies. And so they're putting in these ones that cost a couple $1 million to purchase and implement. And so I come in and say, no, there's a whole lot in the mid-market. I will help you find them. And so then I keep a list of solution providers for these systems. And so then I bring them in and we go through demos and evaluations and everything. And then they end up selecting one that they like. And so then I generally have some role, if not a lot of the role of negotiating for them, because it's very easy for them to get an overprice for what they need. So I end up negotiating for them a lot of times and getting it set up. And then it's the teams, right? Because the company doesn't know what their people have to do. And the vendor lots of times assumes that the business knows what to do. And, they just kind of say, well, this is what we're going to come in and do. And it needs to be a partnership between the two.
Yeah.
And so I work on that and making sure that everybody's doing their part and communicating with each other and keeping things moving forward so that they have a successful implementation. Because the other thing, companies are concerned about two things. First of all, they think that all the systems are very expensive. They don't know about the mid-market systems. And number two, then they're afraid that the implementation is going to cost them millions of dollars because the vendors just come in and,
Yeah.
that if they can take advantage of them, they will.
Yeah, unfortunately, in our business,
Right.
that happens a lot. I get it. Well, Lynda, we appreciate your time here today joining us. And in closing, how did you want to leave off with everyone?
Sure. Anybody that is a mid-market business that's feeling that they need some help with their information technology and they don't know where to go, they don't know what vendors to find out, to look at, or they think it's all going to be too expensive, I can probably help them with that, because that's what I've done with everybody. And they can call me at 818-216-7264 or email me at Lynda, Lynda, at ljrcs.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Stay tuned.
Thank
We'll be
you.
right back with more. Pleasure having Lynda on the show. And I know we'll see her soon. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And for those still continue to listen, we'll be right back in just 2 minutes.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.